obsession, a burning desire, the undeniable passion, the love for someone or something.
EA Sports.
Girl, come on over, hurry up, hurry. Look.
EA Sports.
Hey, can I play?
Oh, that sounds so sweet.
Everything gets old. Well, except for Halle Berry. But two things age quicker than most: video games and sports. I mean, 5 years is a long period of time for anything or anybody, but for video games, it's a quantum leap. I mean, just look at the games that came out in 2017. Horizon Zero Dawn is already being remastered. Breath of the Wild feels like it came out a decade ago, and the entire Battle Royale genre was birthed with PUBG that year. We've come a long way. Same in sports. I mean, LeBron had yet to go to the Lakers, Carson Wentz was the quarterback of the future as opposed to Patrick Mahomes, and Kyrie Irving was just a flat earther. Father Time comes for us all, but when it comes to sports and video games on their own, he's Usain Bolt on wheelies. When you put the two together, he's the Flash without the assault allegations. Well, actually there's been plenty of assault allegations in both video games and sports, so I guess just the Flash. Sports video games age worse than any other type of game. I mean, you can just look at the covers for reference, right? Peyton Hillis, Yasiel Puig, whoever the fuck this guy is. So, if old is bad, new is good, right? Well, given the fact that every time a new Madden comes out, it's accompanied by a video titled Cancel Madden with 3 million plus views, no, new sports games are definitively not good. If we were to make a word cloud of the most commonly said words while playing a sports video game, it really wouldn't be a cloud, it would just be, this game is bull in really, really, really big letters. Which brings us to only one conclusion. Every sports game ever made is bad. What even was the first sports video game? Pong. Pong is not a sport. Yeah, I was all state at pretending to be a rectangle and deflecting a ball. Beer pong is a sport for ages 18 to 22, but after that it's just a sad way to spend an evening. A sports game is a game about a sport you can play in real life, and there wasn't much resembling real life in this era of games. The technical achievement of making something remotely resemble football on a Nintendo Entertainment System is impressive, but even at the time, these were not considered good games. So, what happens when real life is too difficult to replicate? You lean the f*** in. That's what you do. If you can't make a Sean Kemp dunk look real, you make it so unrealistic that realism is boring. It's not the goal here, dum-dum. You're in the jam era. The goal is monster dunks, body-crunching hits, and moonshots that can hit Saturn. F*** the moon. The jam era lasted from 1993 to about the turn of the century, and it was spearheaded by NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, and everyone's favorite, Mutant League Football. Come on, we all spent hours in Mutant League bribing the refs and calling nasty audibles to murder the other team. While these games were good, if not great at the time, they are now decidedly not. NBA Jam's rubber banding is so bad, I opened up the machine and found a bunch of these in place of a motherboard. The quasi 3D plane with these 2D models makes for awkward movement, and it's almost impossible to rebound due to depth perception issues. You need a pair of Horace Grant goggles to figure out what's happening half the time. These problems were rectified in later games like NBA Showtime, which is my personal favorite, and I put a lot of hours into it. On that note, if you want to see a video honing specifically in on midway basketball games, let me know in the comments. Later titles would also add season modes and stat pages, but for the most part, the Jam era was about entering your initials and hoping the AI wouldn't cheat you too badly. In short, arcade-style sports games are great for an hour-long trip down nostalgia lane, but they lose their appeal pretty quickly. The sixth console generation is when technology developed for sports games to look, like sports. They didn't have to rely on insane gimmicks to make entertaining games. Gone were these polygonal monstrosities that invaded the field, and in were these weird Gumby men of the mid-aughts. This is what most people would refer to as the golden era of simulation sports video gaming, but even then, some people would point to titles like NFL and NBA Street as the best of the era, which are basically EA creating its own jam-style games. Looking at the simulation games, there are two that would rank among the best in the genre: NFL 2K5 and MVP Baseball 2005. Why are these games so revered? Well, one was only $20 and gave you Chris Berman, Steve-O, and an NFL-themed kind of bachelor pad sex layer for your troubles, okay? There were no sex layers in MVP Baseball, but there was some sweet, sweet Alfonso Soriano dumper. But seriously, what was going on with the asses in these games? Were these games any good, or were we just hypnotized by the magnitude of booty developers brought to us? Well, a big part of these games' appeal, other than overdeveloped glutes, was franchise mode, the cornerstone of sports gaming. Formerly. Now players could not only go through a season with their favorite team, they could run it back for decades with player progression, regression, drafting, awards, features that made you feel like this was real life. The stakes had never been higher on the virtual gridiron, and Chris Berman made damn sure you knew. My player modes also hit the scene, which allowed you to shoot, pass, and score your way to immortality, and more attractive girlfriends on your dorm corkboard. Man, you gotta love mid-aughts casual sexism. So, these games were essentially an improvement across the board. Realism, graphics, gameplay, etc. They must be fun to play still, right? Diving back into these titles, I gotta say these games are... I mean, these games are slow. I could name every player Peyton Manning threw a touchdown pass to in his career and the time it takes for this ball to hit Marvin Harrison's hands. The players feel like they're floating on top of the ground as opposed to moving on it, if that makes sense. The secondary awareness is also laughably bad at times. MVP Baseball has no feel when it comes to batting. Swings I thought were well-timed or pop-ups and balls I thought I missed splash into McCovey Cove. I know some people swear by these games even still, but if you remove the rose-colored glasses and take them at face value, they're not very good now. The good news is that these games were massive improvements over their predecessors. If this was the type of progress gamers could expect with a new generation of hardware, then surely we must be climbing the mountain to sports game singularity, right? Nah fam, the 7th console generation is looked back upon as having some of the weakest offerings of video games as a whole, and the sports genre is no different. I remember having my mom drive me to GameStop at 11 at night to pick up Madden year after year, only to bring home the game and be wildly disappointed with what it had to offer. Other than holographic John Madden, of course. He wasn't even dead at this point. Why is he Jedi Knighting me through this tutorial? For Madden specifically, you got all these gimmicky features like weapons, Madden Rewind, and Barack Obama, which at the time were fine, but so much substance was lost in the transition to this generation. Franchise modes saw a bunch of features stripped and then poorly built back in. And the gameplay was consistently mediocre. The 360 PS3 generation was when it really started feeling like consumers were buying the same sports game over and over. This is when people started throwing around the term glorified roster update, in which case some games literally were. And looking back on the classic games of that era, like NBA 2K13, they just play weird. The players move like they're glued to the court, so basically the exact opposite problem that NFL 2K5 have, and these menus are just sinful. What are you hiding under those giant shorts, Rajon? So, after a gradual increase in quality, sports games kind of entered a flop era, but surely as we moved into the modern age, we'll see improvement. Here's a graphic from 538 showing user and critic scores for Madden games over the years. Somewhere in here, I'm sure we'll find the latest installments of...
Oh my goodness!
If the 7th gen was a small step back for sports games, the current ecosystem is moonwalking into Satan's basement. How can these games play worse when technology is noticeably better across the board? There's no other genre where the gameplay has diminished as time moves forward. Mario? Pinpoint accuracy on every jump compared to the N64, GameCube, and even the Wii. Uncharted? The Nathan Drake collection plays like a dream compared to the PS3. Hell, Pokemon releases the same game every iteration just like these sports titles, but they still find ways to improve upon the formula. No, Garbodor, you are not part of that. However, the Trubbish to Garbodor evolution is a very accurate representation of the evolution of sports games in the last few years. Innovation has rolled over and died in the wake of Ultimate Team modes, which by and large force you to spend money to field a competitive team. But the real kicker is that when you finally assembled your dream team, next year's game is already out and forces you to start all over again. I'm at a Groundhog Day of low diamond pack pulls here, Ramon. Once studio executives realized they can farm the general population for money with these modes, it was game over. Pun intended. Even when pay to win isn't egregious like in MLB The Show, the overemphasis on Ultimate Team leaves franchise mode in the gutter like Ralphie's baby mama.
A, she was a hooah. B, she was a hooah.
And even with all the resources poured into them, Ultimate Team modes are more cyclical than the games in and of themselves. Faces of the franchise, Future Stars, All-Stars, Ken Griffey Jr. card, Finest cards has been the game cycle of the show for at least 3 years. And once your squad takes the field, animation-dependent gameplay ruins the feeling of control and fairness. So right now, players' options are A, old games that are good for a little bit but have very little substance, B, games with a ton of substance but don't really play that well, or C, play actual trash and fork over hundreds of dollars in a vain attempt to recapture the glory of watching your college girlfriends get hotter and hotter the more touchdowns you score. Did a woman so much as playtest NCAA 06? There are no good sports titles. How did we get here? For one, exclusive licensing led to a lack of competition, and when you're the only game in town, there's very little pressure to innovate. 2, the annualized nature of these games give developers practically no time to innovate, even if they want to. If your job is to grill 2,000 hamburgers in an hour, there's really not a lot of time to f around with the spices, you dig? However, the biggest issue of all is that sports game fans are dumb. Every year, the reviews get worse. More and more videos pop up saying to cancel Madden in 2K, like it's a once great stand-up comic who's descended into unfunny transphobic rants. But even with this Chappellian decline, we still buy the games. In record numbers too. If I'm grilling up nasty patties and you tell me, "This is the worst burger I ever ate. 3 more, please." There's no incentive to cook better. Okay, I'm gonna cut myself off here. Yelling into the ether to stop buying sports games has been done a million times before, and it's proven to do little to nothing, right? This is just for me to say that I don't think sports gamers have a way to access sustained quality content right now. And that's a shame, right? I mean, a classic movie isn't bad just because it's old. There's still good acting, good directing, cinematography, a message, a reason to go back and watch it again and enjoy it like it's your first time seeing it. But sports games just haven't gotten to that point. And now it seems like there's nothing to look forward to. We're still searching for our Halle Berry, but all we're getting is Catwoman. Okay, I lied. There is one good sports game, and that is Mutant League Football on the PS4. Thanks for watching the video, everyone. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're into sports content, or sports gaming content. I also post stand-up shorts and that sort of thing as well. See you next time.